know the train's on time, I'm moving on. Well, the days seem longer in the driving rain, but a man's gotta be there just the same. We're moving on, we're rolling on. From sun to sun, the work is never done, and we're moving on.
Is hard, the hours are long, and railroading is still one of the most dangerous jobs in the world.
When my friends ask me why I'm a trainman, I can only answer, because I like it.
That's what my grandpa used to say, because I like it.
It's always been that way from the beginning. All aboard, folks! On America's first trains. See the miracle of 1830.
I saw it all right, and it was so noisy, the fireman, he sat on a hissing safety valve to make it quieter, and it sure did, till the train blew up. And that's a fact, son.
It's an outrage, an absolute outrage. I say unto you, they are devices of Satan to lead immortal souls to hell.
As a scientist, I can state that going more than 30 miles an hour will mean instant death by suffocation.
Few care. Most are infected by a new disease called railroad fever. Young men are leaving the farms and villages for the great adventure of railroading.
I wouldn't marry a farmer, he's always in the dirt. I'd rather marry a railroad man who wears a striped shirt. A railroader mother, a railroader for me. If ever I marry in this wide world, a railroader's bride I'll be.
You feel like a hero. We're going places nobody's ever been to before, and we're getting there fast. Hear what Davy Crockett said?
I can only judge of the speed by putting my head out to spit, which I did, and overtook it so quick that it hit me smack in the face.
You hear? The train's going all the way out to Chicago now. 3,000 people living there already.
By the 1850s, the tracks stretch halfway across the country. The brave, the eager, the restless are on their way, searching for the hidden promise of unknown America. Seeking the same promise, millions more are coming from Europe. Into New York come the Irish, fleeing the terrible potato famine and gambling on America to give them a new chance.
Dearest mother, America has truly welcomed me. As I stepped off the boat, a railroad agent met me and gave me a job at a lovely $1 a day. But it seems that $1 a day is less than the Americans get, for it can barely buy your bread over here.
Oh, we're trampled in the dust over here, over here. Oh, we're trampled in the dust, but the Lord in whom we trust will give us crumb for crust over here, over here. Ooh.
This country is in a terrible depression. Worse yet, my fellow workers look at us with scorn because they fear they will soon be forced to work for the same terrible low wage as we, God forbid. Some speak of a union. A good idea, perhaps, but dangerous.
The times are dangerous, and in many ways. 1861, we are in part a slave economy, and President Lincoln has said that no nation can exist half slave and half free. As the world's first troop trains rumble across the country, John Brown's terrible prophecy comes to pass.
The crimes of this country cannot be solved but with blood.
Straight was the course to the top of the hill, and the rebels with shot and shell plowed furrows of death in the toiling ranks and guarded them as they fell. There soon was a horrible dying yell from the heights they could not gain, and those that doom and death had spared rode slowly back again. There was none to write to the blue-eyed girl the words her lover had said, while mother at home is awaiting her boy. She'll only know he's dead.
Death by murder. It is the final bitterness of this bloodiest of wars.
Although I am only 22, I was honored to be chosen as a trainman on the president's funeral train and helped to bring him home to Springfield. We roamed the country so the people could mourn him. God grant brother will never take up arms against brother again.
He's coming home to Illinois, the old man sadly said. He's not a-coming as a passenger, he's coming to us dead. And then a whistle pierced the air, the slow train someone cried. The people rose in a breathless haste and quickly went outside.
The man dies, but his truth goes on.
He's not a-coming as a passenger, he's coming to us dead.
The end of the war brings restlessness and change.
New York was too crowded for me, so I got on the railroad and I went to the end of the line, Omaha. Then I took the wagon west. Now I'm digging for gold.
Going to California?
That's still where the gold is.
How long you figure?
Oh, about 6 months from Omaha.
They take their tools for mining. They take guns and ammunition. They take clothing, food, and water. They take medicines and coffins. Americans have dreamt of the moment when the whole nation will be linked together by rail from east to west. Now at last, the railroads will try to push across the whole country right to the Pacific. It's a big country and it's a beautiful country, but it's a tough country. There are mountains to conquer, rivers to ford, forests to penetrate. 2 railroads take up the challenge.
Heading west from Omaha, the Union Pacific.
Heading east from California, the Central Pacific.
The 2 railroads are to join. It will be a race to see who lays more track, for the prize is land and money. To each company, the government will give 20 square miles of public lands for each mile of track they lay. They will own all the oil, coal, timber, gold, or other minerals to be found in these lands. Little wonder they drive the men at breakneck speed. There are 10 spikes to the rail, 400 rails to the mile, 1,800 miles to San Francisco. 21 million times are those sledges to come down with their sharp punctuation before the line is completed.
They said they wanted me to work them in like mules. Well, there's only one way to work a mule. With a whip.
Who worked the Union Pacific? We did.
Ex-soldiers from the Civil War armies, immigrants, mainly Irish, and the men of the plains and mountains. But the Central Pacific, heading eastward from California, has a problem. Their workers keep quitting.
We ain't in California to work on the railroads. We're here to dig for gold.
The superintendent of the Central Pacific comes up with an idea.
I thought that if the Chinese were capable of building themselves a great wall, well, maybe they could build us a railroad.
Preposterous.
Well, let me try it first with 50. If it works, we can bring them over from China by the boatload.
It works. And soon there are 12,000 Chinese on the Central Pacific payroll. The land the trainmen have to push through is vast. There are cities and towns in the East and Midwest, and some settlements in California, but in between, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Except the towns the trains bring with them. Towns of saloon keepers, gamblers, and prostitutes, called Hell on Wheels. The gin mills, the girls, and the gamblers create a bit of hell and help the workmen forget for a while the back-breaking labor, the mud, the sickness, and above all, the loneliness. Foreign visitors have a different impression of the Hell on Wheels towns. Of course, they are only tourists.
Rolling impromptu cities full of gold and death. Say, are Sodom and Gomorrah returned to the earth?
Bravo! They are magnificent establishments of pleasure. I say it again. Bravo!
A few of the Hell on Wheels towns remain to become respectable communities. Most pick up and disappear when the railheads move on.
Working the Union Pacific, we got a lot of trouble with the Indians. It ain't enough to be good with a pick and shovel. You gotta be good with a shotgun, too.
They made a bold dash till they come near our train. The owls fell around us like showers of rain. But with our long rifles we fed 'em hot lead, till many a brave warrior around us lay dead. We heard the Sioux Indians all out on the plain, all killing poor workmen and burning their trains. All killing poor trainmen with arrows and bows. When captured by Indians, no mercy they'd show.
On the Central Pacific, we don't have much trouble with the Indians. Probably because we give them free rides. We give each of the old chiefs a pass, good on the passenger cars, and we let the common Indians ride the freight cars whenever they see fit.
No trouble with the engines, but we sure have a lot of trouble with the weather. Winter snows sometimes 10 feet high. Avalanches. It's almost impossible getting supplies to the job.
The Chinese are remarkable. Without them, we couldn't have built the line.
Not to be outdone by the Chinese of the Central Pacific, the Irish immigrants working on the Union Pacific push ever westward.
I thought we were supposed to have met the other line by now.
Keep going.
I hear we passed them. Hey, what's going on?
Keep working. The company gets paid for every mile of track it lays. So lay track.
On one 600-mile stretch alone, the tycoons make a profit of $30 million. To get as much land and money as possible, the two companies keep laying track until they pass each other by 100 miles. It takes an act of Congress to make them finally stop and link up. Promontory, Utah is chosen as a place where the two lines will officially meet. May 9th, 1869. Everyone awaits the news. The great event is to be announced over the country's first nationwide telegraph hookup.
Two trains are approaching. Telegrapher, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
The silver hammer Governor Stanford will use to drive in the golden spike has been wired, so that when it hits the spike, a telegraph signal will alert the whole country.
To all stations, when the golden spike is driven, we will say done. Listen for the signals from the blow of the hammer. Governor Stanford has raised the hammer for the golden spike.
He missed.
He missed the damn thing!
Governor Stanford has missed the golden spike.
Don't stop. Send the signal anyway. Say done.
Done. Done. Done.
The engineer pulls the throttle, the fireman rings the bell, conductor hollers all aboard, and away we go. Hallelujah, 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 got glory in my soul.
The party is on not only at Promontory, but throughout America.
Hallelujah, 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 got glory in my soul.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
New railroads crisscross the land. People are eager to take advantage of this modern way of getting to distant places fast.
Dear John, isn't it wonderful that the children and I leave New York on Saturday and we'll all be together again in San Francisco in only 7 or 8 days? Your loving wife.
Well, if you could stop when you wanted, and if you were not locked up in a box with 50 or 60 tobacco chewers, and if the engine and fire didn't burn holes in your clothes, and the smell of smoke of oil in the chimney didn't poison you, and you weren't in danger of being blown sky high or knocked off the rails, it would be a perfect way to travel.
And if you think traveling on the train is bad, you should see what happens when you stop and get off for a bite to eat.
Now the beefsteak, it was rare, and the butter had red hair, and the baby had his feet both in the stew. Oh, the eggs they could not touch. If you kicked one, it would hatch in that awful railway hash house where I go.
To help provide better eating facilities, Frederick H. Harvey advertises,
Wanted, young single women of good character, attractive and intelligent, 18 to 30.
Soon, hundreds of Harvey girls are serving trainmen and passengers wholesome meals along the route of the great Santa Fe. Frederick Harvey gives his customers their money's worth, but only their money's worth. An honest but frugal type, his dying words are reported to be,
Slice the ham thinner.
Now Now that the transcontinental railroad is completed, cattle can be shipped from the great ranges of the West. The new work of rounding up cattle creates a new breed of men, the cowboy.
Now a cowboy's life is a weary thing. It's rope them and brand them and drive and sing. They ride the range from sun to sun, for a cowboy's work, Lord, is never done.
The land is vast, the land is good, the land is cheap. If it's public land, the government practically gives it away. If it's private land, you can buy it from the railroads. They're eager to set you up as a homesteader and ship your produce to market.
I didn't mind being packed like a sardine into what they call a Zulu car. And I didn't mind finding out that being a homesteader ain't all it's cracked up to be. What I do mind is now that I finally got some produce, those damn railroads are charging me a fortune to ship it. They're bleeding me dry.
But they stay and they ship, and they make the Wild West and railroading a legend.
Come all you rounders if you want to hear a story about a brave engineer. Casey Jones was a rounder's name. On a 6-day wheel, the boy won his fame. He was coming down the hill, doing 90 miles an hour when his whistle broke into a scream. He was bound in the wreck with his hand on the throttle. He was scalded to death by the steam. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar as she glides along the woodlands through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, yeah, the locomotive's call. She's a regular combination of a Wabash cannonball. It was on a Friday night, the moon was shining bright. They robbed the Glendale train. With the keeper on his knees, he delivered up the keys to the outlaws Frank and Jesse James. For Jesse had a wife to mourn for his life. The children, they were brave. But that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard had laid for Jesse in his grave.
Where the devil is law and order for us train men?
While a train's being robbed, you rarely get to see those brave marshals. Wyatt Earp, Luke Short, and Bat Masterson. But as the vast empty plains of the nation are laced with railroad tracks, the Wild West is tamed. America builds its cities. America's first really big business is the railroads, and the rails run across everything: industry, agriculture, politics, morals. While wages are cut, the power and wealth of the railroad magnates boom.
My dear, opera glasses for $75,000? Well, why not?
Their money reaches into Congress and the courts. It begins to seem that the tycoons own everything, including the country. As one railroad magnate puts it,
we have the legislature on our side, the courts on our side, and we hire the law by the year.
The public outcry for regulation is put in its place by Commodore Vanderbilt.
The public be damned.
Trainmen killed this year, 3,000. Injured, 32,000 men. For years now, a safer break has existed, but the railroads, for the most part, have refused to install it.
They won't do a damn thing as long as brakes cost more than brakemen.
(1877). They cut our pay another 10%.
18 hours a day for $1.50. Who can live on it?
I say we should strike.
Me too. My wife says better to starve quick than slow.
But we got no union.
Shh. They just hung 11 men for organizing in the coal mines.
Yeah, but they're striking the railroads in West Virginia.
Oh, it's spreading all right. Here the governor sent the county militia into Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but the militia joined the strikers.
No freights moving anywhere.
Trouble races along the tracks. Strikes are breaking out in Toledo, Columbus, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Chicago, and all this without a union. The head of the Pennsylvania Railroad says,
"Give the strikers a rifle diet for a few days and see how they like that kind of bread."
Now 600 state militia are ordered to Pittsburgh. They fire directly into the strikers. Enraged, the townspeople, 20,000 strong, join the strikers. In Pittsburgh alone, 26 workers are killed. In only 2 weeks, it's all over. Across the country, over 100 are dead. But the fact remains that for 2 weeks, the workers have stopped the nation's railroads. Things will never again be the same. In 1883, meeting secretly in a caboose in Oneonta, New York, a handful of workers formed the Brotherhood of Railroad Trainmen. They want accident and sickness benefits and a decent burial for their men. So they passed the hat.
No regular insurance company will take us. We got too many accidents. Remember when my brother was crushed between the cars? Mary didn't even have the money to bury him.
Many's the man been killed on the railway and laid in a lonesome grave.
They say, let's see your hand. You're hired if you have a couple of fingers missing. Shows your experience.
Even though there is an automatic way of coupling cars together, most of the men must still step between the rolling cars and couple them by hand.
To the Trainmen's Journal. Is it not possible, brothers, for the lives of trainmen to be made at least as safe as those of soldiers in battle?
By 1893, the membership of the Brotherhood has risen to 30,000. They are hard-working, hard-fighting, and hard-playing.
Dear Trainmen's Journal, one word of praise to the boys of our lodge. They are grand and noble boys, and they are always ready to lend a helping hand. With best wishes to the B of RT boys, Pansy. P.S. Mothers, if you stop your girls from going to parties, where do you expect your boys to spend their evenings? If they cannot spend them with the girls, they will go elsewhere.
Elsewhere. Like to see Little Egypt at the Chicago World's Fair. This is the turn of the century, the years of the wasp waist and the bare shoulder, the gay 90s. And they are indeed good times for some. But bad times have arrived again for most Americans. Another depression has hit. The unemployed applying for work at the Pullman Palace Car Company just outside of Chicago learn that before they can get a job, they will be forced to rent one of the houses owned by Pullman. and pay his high rents. For behind this company town's gracious facade, they really live in bleak poverty.
We live in a Pullman house, buy our food from the Pullman Star. We're taught in the Pullman school, catechized in the Pullman church, and when we die, we shall go to the Pullman hell.
Well, I think I'm there already. After they take out for the rent and the food for my 2 weeks' wages, I get handed 9 cents. 9 cents.
When Pullman, with $26 million of reserve profits, cuts wages without cutting the high rents, the men strike.
Brothers, we do not know what the outcome will be, and in fact, we do not care much. We do know that we are working for less wages than will maintain our families, and on that proposition, we absolutely refuse to work any longer.
Their call for help is answered by the new American Railway Union, which hopes to unite all railroad workers. Their president is Eugene V. Debs.
Enough of that old paternalism. What can we do for labor? That is the language of the slave bloc. A more manly query is, what can labor do for itself? We can unite!
The men declare a sympathy boycott. They will continue to work all trains except those carrying Pullman cars. But the railroad strategy is to create a national emergency that will bring the government in to smash the union. So they put Pullman cars on all trains, even freight and mail, forcing the strike to spread. 125,000 railroad men all over the country now go out. Traffic stops dead on all lines west of Chicago. Never has there been a national strike of such magnitude. Debs gives strict orders.
Remember, no violence. We must triumph as law-abiding citizens or not at all.
Management convinces President Cleveland that only federal troops can guarantee the delivery of the mails and preserve peace. Over the protests of Illinois Governor Altgeld, the troops move in. Ex-convicts and drifters have been put in uniforms. Guns will now run the trains. The result is inevitable. Yet it is the law itself that deals them the cruelest blow.
The growth of labor organization must be checked by law. A national railroad strike is illegal. We must prevent interference with interstate commerce. Injunction granted.
Men, the injunction says we are forbidden to answer questions, to send telegrams, to tell anybody to join the boycott. Otherwise, we go to jail.
Whatever happened to freedom of speech?
Debs is jailed. Hearing of this, Clarence Darrow, a railroad corporation lawyer, leaves his job.
I'm defending Gene Debs. The conspiracy between the federal government and the railroad corporation is too much for my weak stomach.
But the forces allied against them are too strong. The Pullman strike is lost, and the American Railway Union is destroyed. Gene Debs sees it differently.
No strike is ever lost. 10,000 times has the labor movement been seized by the throat and choked into insensibility. Nevertheless, its historic mission is as certain as the setting sun.
As the trains roll again, the railroads conspire to prevent the strikers from getting back their jobs. A blacklist now covers the entire nation, and it will keep union men off the railroads for years. Many must leave town and use a false name to get work. Those who do get work must sign a yellow dog contract, guaranteeing the railroads that they will never again join a union. But never is a long time.
What is that I see yonder coming, yonder coming? What is that I see yonder coming, yonder coming? It's that Union train coming, coming, coming. Get on board, get on board.
As the century turns, the men are secretly joining the Brotherhoods by the tens of thousands, hiding their union cards in their shoes. And as the years pass, the Brotherhoods grow stronger. They develop new muscle, political muscle. With it, they win new safety laws to protect them. The dangerous hand coupler is finally outlawed. And by 1916, driving with all their power, the Brotherhoods achieved their long-fought-for dream. A special law giving the 8-hour day to railroad workers. The work is still hard and dangerous, but trainmen are trainmen, and to them the sound of the rails is still the sweetest song in the world.
Look yonder coming, come down that railroad line. Look yonder coming, come down that railroad line. Is that old boss so special? Come to the station on time.
But the men find their new 8-hour law is a bitter joke. Management simply refuses to honor it, and the hours stay long. Trouble brews. But there is far greater trouble in store for all Americans. War has engulfed Europe. The war to end all wars. Knowing we are soon to enter the conflict, President Wilson nationalizes the railroads. The government now enforces the 8-hour law. Management's objections are forgotten as America's sons go to war.
Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the drums coming everywhere.
But many Americans believe our boys don't belong over there. For opposing the war, Eugene V. Debs is sentenced to jail.
We now realize that it's extremely dangerous to exercise the constitutional right of free speech in a country fighting to make democracy safe for the world.
While still in jail, Debs runs for president on the socialist ticket. Americans give him an astonishing 1 million votes. After 3 years, he is pardoned. To the end of his days, he remains, as always, a man ahead of his times.
I am opposed to every war but the war of social revolution.
And the Brotherhoods fight hard to win their kind of social revolution. In 1926, for the first time in history, they get Congress to pass a law requiring railway management to bargain with unions. The blacklist is finally outlawed. This Railway Labor Act is a milestone, which sets a pattern that will later help bring the same benefits to all workers. At last, the bloodshed and bitterness of the past seems to have forged a new dignity for this generation of railroad workers. Over the passenger trains that cut across the country, the airplane casts its speeding shadow. But the railroads aren't taking this new competition too seriously. In fact, nobody takes anything too seriously these days, because America takes a wild ride through the 20s. 1929, the wild ride is over. The wounds of the Great Depression begin to scar almost every American. Hunger stalks the land. Men leave their homes, their farms, their families, riding the freights all over the country, desperately searching for a job. And riding with them are thousands of out-of-work trainmen, now part of this human cargo, shipped endlessly back and forth with no point of destination.
It is vitally essential, if we are to protect the public of Southern California, that the indigent transient class be prevented from coming into this state. They are coming here at this time not for the purpose of securing work, but for the purpose of living on relief, stealing, or begging. We have taken the action that we believe will be effective in preventing this class entering the state of California hereafter.
Where's your home?
Chicago.
You ride a freight all the way from Chicago?
Yes, sir.
Well, you can ride them back, too, or any way you can to get back. We're going to see you over the state line. Don't come back to California until you can come in like a man.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt now calls for a New Deal, and the nation begins to pull itself together. Once more, it's back to work. Good times, bad times, beer and champagne times. It's quite a country.
But
and as America gets back on her feet, she really begins to roll. These are the glory years of the great passenger trains. All the blood and guts of the past are fuel for them as they thunder and roar across the land. symbolizes the tradition and muscle that shaped young America. And now the people hear them trumpet the promise of tomorrow as America plunges into the future. We're moving on. Sure, the danger is still there. But there's more to it than that. A lot more. Looking back, we know that out of our yesterdays has come the strength of today.
Driving rain, but a man's gotta be there just the same. We're moving on.